Hey, everybody. This is Dan and Lawrence. Here's Lawrence from Japan. Yeah, Lawrence is going to be my emotional companion animal for the evening. And my emotional companion human for the evening is none other than Joe. Say hi to everybody, Joe.
Pleasure to be here. I'll keep Dan stable. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Tell me when you get that mastered, because I still don't believe that was going to happen. But anyway, all right, let's stay positive. Positive. It's always good to stay positive. All right, guys. Well, I saw that some of you were betting for the AMA to start on time today. Well,
we tried.
Yeah, we tried our best. Better luck next time. Time is a human invention anyway. Okay. So we can bend the concept a little bit here, just like we do at Ergo. Time, it's there. We still keep building. All right, everybody, let's do a little bit of an update. Again, exchanges are literally in the final stages. We have made some kind of finalization moves, I guess you could call them. Today, we're just kind of working on the strategy of the actual listing, and it's again, we're going to let you guys know when it's happening. But like I said, we're really on a threshold right now. Literally today, we're taking care of something. Well, my today, Joe's last night, because I live in the future and Joe lives in the past. He lives in Colorado. It's a nice place to live in, but you are in the past, Joe. All right. I know how the future is, and the future is rainy and kind of hot. All right. So, yeah, well, look, it's never hot where you are, because you live like on Colorado's Mount Everest or something. You're a mountain man. One of these days we're going to see you with like a Grizzly Adams beard, and, the camera's going to move in slowly, and Joe's going to be like,
no, it itches me, man. I can grow a beard, but then I'm like some kind of tweaker always touching it. So it's best to not.
I had a beard for forever. Okay, for literally like 10 years, maybe more. You get used to it, and then sometimes it just starts bothering you, and then you get used to it again. It just like you go through phases. Sometimes it just itch, and then it just kind of like whatever, and then go back to it. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's it's a trade-off. You look more grizzly. You fit the part better, but it itches. It needs, you need, mating. Is that still manscaping? Anyway.
I don't know. We're getting off topic, Dan. Emotional support here.
We're getting off topic. Yeah. So let's get back on topic. So the next item that I've been working on again is, in fact, education. And so we're very close to finalizing a high-level curriculum. So again, I would like to see a course that offers official certification. So basically, the thinking behind this is that what is the highest value for the average person to take a course, to take an education course? Okay, so yes, they get to learn. You get to learn about the blockchain. You get to learn about blockchain in business. You get to learn about Ergo and what tools they can use for business, because that's one of the courses that we're going to do is blockchain for business. How to build on Ergo and what they can build on Ergo, and so on and so forth. Aside from that, I think would be really useful would be to actually have it certified by an accredited institution, saying that yes, in fact, this person is a certified blockchain professional, which will actually give the person that is that completed the course something to go and kind of add to their resume to basically be able to make more money and get a better job. I think it's got a lot of value. I think it's going to attract a lot of people, and so basically by proxy, we're going to be attracting a lot of people to Ergo because we are going to be using Ergo as our main base for learning. So really excited about that. And again, there are going to be several levels of courses. We're also going to be trying to spread these courses out to other universities. The university is just about, we're about to well, I don't want to do an announcement of an announcement. We're going to finalize some things in the next few weeks, and we will let you know from the Zengate side of who we're working with and what we're doing. Again, guys, as soon as that is available, I will let you guys know. And I don't say these kind of things to tease. I just don't like to really give out too many details, exact details about things that are still in motion, right? So I don't want to give false perceptions of what's going on, which is why I keep things anonymous until the deal is signed. And so another vertical that I've been working on a lot is facilitating our partnership with CNFTCon. And like I said, I'm really glad to see so many Ergo projects coming out there. We're going to have the Ergo Foundation really well represented over there. Right now, I'm working on specific collateral for the booth. So we're going to have fireside chats. We're going to have presentations of different projects in the Ergo ecosystem. We're going to feature feature projects. We're going to do remote interviews. We're going to do live interviews with Ergonauts that are going to be on the ground at CNFTCon. And just really driving a lot of exposure to Ergo, and the organizers of CNFTCon, they're also very passionate about that. So I'm really happy to have them help us out to really kind of bring a lot of exposure to Ergo. I really think this is going to be really good for us. It's also going to introduce other people that are not in the Cardano Ergo ecosystem to Ergo, because they're going to be other people they're attracting to the convention. It's not just going to be kind of like an inner ecosystem event. There's also going to be people from other ecosystems that are being invited. So again, very, very cool event. I'm going to be taking my my 16-hour flight to actually, I think it's going to be 16-hour flight one way to Vegas. So really looking forward to that. Not really, but what are you going to do? So yeah, and again, we're still we can still fit you in if you would like to have your project featured. If you'd like to have your project interviewed during the convention, I'd be more than happy to facilitate that for you. So just again, please let me know, DM me on Telegram or any other means. You can email me. And we'll make it happen. I will. It's many people already emailed me or DM'd me, so we definitely have good traction. So Superb Me was asking AMA in the air. Actually, I tried doing that once. I'm not going to tell you which one it was, but one time I actually recorded something while it was in the air for you guys, and it's not easy. It's not easy. There's a lot more background noise than you realize when you actually start recording. The plane makes more background noise than you would expect for it to make. And because you're there, you don't really realize it. But then when you actually start recording, you're like, oh man, this is really noisy. So I don't know about an AMA from the air. All right, guys, that's about it from me. What about you, Joe? What do we got going on the nitty gritty?
Oh, it was a good week. We had a pretty nice discussion going on in some channels about layer 2 solutions, the potential there. Looks like we have more than a few projects that are already plugging in and optimizing their applications, which is huge to see. Today's September 1st, so there's a lot of speculation out there that the merge, Ethereum moving from proof of work to proof of stake is going to happen this month. Let's see. If so, we're in for a really interesting time in terms of miner migration, user migration, just a lot of kind of madness in the space. I think it's going to be an interesting time. Everyone out there, enjoy. Whenever you have these kind of mass events, it's always interesting to see how things shake out. There's usually some, I don't know, drama, marketing coverage, pros and cons out there. So let's see what happens. We had a developer update yesterday. All the developers are busy building stuff. There was a lot of excitement this week. There was a beta version of collateralized lending platform called Duckpools.io. I know that they did a good job of throwing up a KYA, giving users a warning, hey, this is a test dApp, and they limited, access in terms of funds. So, people just don't ape into something that's still under development. Looking forward to seeing their GitHub. Big week. I know that both Rosen and Ergo Dex have been playing around on the test net and have done transfers between Ergo and Cardano. And that's really nice to see. I know that once, Basel is live, there's going to be some really interesting development on both sides. So looking forward to that collaboration. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, let's get to some questions, I guess, right? About that time?
That's about that time.
All right. Well, let's make that time happen. So, let's see. So there's a good question right here. Do you think that a potential increase in hash rate will bring more developers to Ergo as it may be seen as more secure? So I'll take a stab at this one, and of course, I'm sure Joe, has a very well thought out and going to be really well articulated answer to this as well. So let me kind of take a stab at this first. So what you really need to understand is that yes, there will be an increase in hash rate as Ergo evolves, right? So more people are securing the network. There's going to be an increase in hash rate. There's going to be an increase in participants. Now, what you have to really remember is it's not proportionate, right? So there's always a curve at which it moves, right? So increase the hash rates and increase the hash rate, and then community or developer involvement follows. I don't think that just because the hash rate increases, we're going to get a big influx of developers. What I think will attract developers more is an increase in hash rate, which will make the network more secure, and the tooling, and the more and more tooling we put out there to complement what developers are looking for. And again, we have a lot of great tooling, but I think that the tooling itself is going to have a much bigger impact on attracting developers than just the increase in hash rate or the increase in security, which is also an amazing thing. But again, I think the tooling is a bigger sell for developers. And just personally, I know from doing feasibility studies and then basically technical feasibilities on blockchains and development environments. It's basically comes down to tooling, speed, and network size. But network size is basically, it's below tooling a lot of times for developers. So at least that's what I've seen. What is your take on this, Joe?
Sure. I think that mining has always been a good on-ramp for people to learn more about blockchains and development and smart contracts. Just because, that subset of users has an investment in, crypto as a whole. So I think that oftentimes when someone gets into mining, they kind of put their foot in the water, and then how far they swim just depends on the person. Now, one thing that we have to be conscientious of is that Ergo is UTXO based, and a lot of miners are going to be coming off the account model. So there is some differences that they have to start to grasp between those two models, right? The account and UTXO. And then, when we get into the kind of functional nature of Ergo script and you get into registers and how smart contracts are built, it is very different than what the average Solidity enthusiast is used to, right? And that's where, educational on-ramps and tooling comes into account. I know that we have DECO, which is starting a new semester soon, and that is a great resource, even for layman's, just to understand, okay, what are you putting your money into? How does it work? If you look into DECO, they do have a YouTube channel. They do have actual developers in the ecosystem that have onboarded and taught some people from scratch that actually have ended up building on Ergo, which is, I have to tip my hat to that. We also have an initiative that's coming out of DAPStep. Ilya is putting together videos in terms of building on Ergo, and we also have some SDKs out there coming from ErgoPad, coming from Nautilus. And so having those educational mechanisms are just going to be important. I would say it's my hope, and, I can hope with my fingers crossed, because I know there's a lot of people that just kind of mindlessly ape in this space. But I would hope that if somebody is really interested, they want to do their due diligence, learn a little bit, ultimately protect themselves, right? And as we have educational tools, I think that's the first step, just in terms of visualizing the differences and starting to pick that up. And then also, the tooling itself is going to be important. And that's been a continual development this year that's growing at a nice pace. But yeah, miners do have a tendency to tinker, right? That's kind of why they make good developers, is because, you're tinkering with your rigs, then you start learning about the chain and you start tinkering around, learning how things work. And a lot of the times that leads one to become more involved in understanding kind of the internal aspects of these systems.
Sorry, I keep having to put myself on mute to avoid the barking dog factor that is happening in my house quite a bit right now.
What animal?
Yeah, I got 4 dogs in here right now, and it's raining outside, and so they're barking at at Thor and Zeus and all those guys that are making their life a living hell right now with the thunder and the rain and all that crazy stuff. Anyway, let's go to this next question here, and this is a good question from Terry. So what other entities in the foundation is the foundation training to work on the core protocol outside the current set of actors? So why don't you take that one, Joe?
Sure. So right now, the main incentive that the foundation offers in terms of attracting developers specifically for the node is bounties, right? And we do have a pretty open community where, if somebody works on the node, or really in most aspects of Ergo, they find a lot of developer support and kind of onboarding, right? The Ergo Foundation, ultimately that's going to be one of its core purposes, is to maintain the core of the protocol. I would personally hope that in time, as Ergo grows, it becomes more of a diversified group working on the node, but that has to come with time, right? There has to be a certain value aspect that creates the incentive and popularity to do that. But in my opinion, the more people at the table, it's just going to lead to better discussions and collective mind share. So, I would say long term, I would love to see other entities or actors come in, and so we can have higher level discussions about the future of the protocol. But it's early for that. It's one thing that you see about Bitcoin is you have a couple of entities and actors around the core protocol that are always talking, debating, proposing ideas. And, to some degree, it does make them a little bit glacial in terms of change, but it also diversifies the just mind share and set of actors around it. I think that's ultimately a good thing. So my hope would be that we get more node developers, we get more high level ideas, bring them to the table, and then discuss and debate and figure out what path forward is best.
Yeah, I think that, well, a lot of this will actually come from other entities that are not the EF. Well, I mean, I guess this is basically what you're saying, that are not the EF joining the ecosystem and really leading the conversation on some things, right? So my hope that it is also Zengate. Zengate will do that at some point. We will be able to contribute to the core protocol, and our development team is also going to work in a core protocol with the Ergo Foundation, and we could, develop something new. I mean, the Ergo Foundation is and the development team is more of kind of like the fundamentals, the OG crew. And maybe Zengate or other actors that come into the ecosystem. It doesn't just have to be Zengate. And I hope it's not just Zengate that's doing this. Spectrum, Ergoland, I'm sorry, Exit. What is the new name of Ergoland?
Excel. I know it's you got the memory of it now. Me too.
Yeah. So, or whoever else is out there kind of doing. They're using the protocol for their own particular application, and I'm a strong believer in commercial adoption being a big driver of innovation. And so for that, this is why I think that at a certain point in the future, in the near future, Zengate will play a significant role in contributing to the core protocol, because we will come to points where we will say, okay, well, look, we're trying to develop functionality, we're trying to develop an ecosystem, we're trying to expand the ecosystem. We need to develop the stooling. We need to make these updates to the protocol. How do we do that? How do we compromise? How to create these new advancements? I definitely think that as more outside actors, as more real decentralization happens, that's when new outside entities will expand and basically come in and start developing the protocol. That's it's good, and the Cardano ecosystem that's already starting to happen. Well, not with the core protocol, but kind of extending, layer 2 solutions and building things on top. And eventually, I think these companies will be developing part of the core protocol once it goes basically completely to the community. Like say companies like DC Spark, for example, these guys are doing a lot of development, or Genius Yield. These guys are all doing a lot of cool development. ADA Finance, but a lot of other ones. WMT is also going to think the World Mobile, I think, is going to be doing a lot of really good development, and eventually, I think there's going to be core development that is going to come out of that company because of their particular application of Cardano. So just to wrap it up, I think that is the real way to make this happen, to really expand this, and not to fall into the trap of, well, I don't know if I want to call it the trap, but kind of the Bitcoin scenario where you basically have a couple of dev houses, right? You only have a couple of major dev houses that are really kind of doing it. And then if somebody doesn't like it, they'll just fork it, like Bitcoin Cash or whatever, or Litecoin. They'll just kind of take it as like, yeah, screw you guys. And I don't like what you're doing. I'm just going to make my own.
It's important that we stay in contact with the developer community to support the functionality that Ergo has. And actually, we've seen a lot of growth and just great ideas from actually outside the EF in terms of EIPs. Creating standards for building on top of Ergo, which sometimes then the core protocol needs to adjust to a little bit. So I imagine that will continue.
Yep. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? There we go. Let's see. All right. Well, all right. All right. So here's a bit more of a techie question, techie-ish. Does a hash rate increase improve block time consistency, variability after difficulty adjustments? I know the average stays at 2 minutes. So what is your take on that, Joe?
So you have the hash rate, you have the difficulty, you have the target, and they're all constantly adjusting to try to maintain the 2 minute average, which, that's what basically when the hash rate adjusts, it's trying to target 2 minutes. It'll move the difficulty up or down depending on the hash rate. Now, that is a flexible number, 2 minutes, right? We're not going to have a block, 2 minutes on the dot every 2 minutes. That's something that the network is programmed over time to adjust for. Now, there are some, I would say, potential weaknesses in our adjustment period that we inherited from being, let's say, non-outsourceable, having forced solo mining. And it's important to kind of educate about that as we get an influx of miners. Right now, the epic is 1,024 blocks. And the goal of having that long epic is that it gave solo miners the ability to vote, right? When you have single, let's say more of a democratic voting system, having more participation in a larger number is going to more accurately reflect consensus among a set of actors. After non-outsourceable puzzles had an issue and we went through the hard fork to Autolycos 2, we inherited mining pools, right? And that creates a very different model of governance versus like a grassroots democracy where, right now pools are the main actors that are voting. I do know that, we do have a push specifically from GetBlock to create new layer 2 mechanisms to kind of bring back like collective solo mining, which is really neat to see. I think at some point in the future, it would be good to start a discussion with miners in terms of our ability to shorten the epic length without adjusting the target and how things are actually calculated. I think that could potentially be done pretty surgically. But I also want to make sure that we watch how proof of work mining itself develops with smart pools, because we may grow back into a place where having that diversified governance and voting system makes a lot of sense. So it's hard for me to say that, it couldn't be beneficial again long term. But ultimately, the miners are going to have a vote, and my collective hash rate is, not that great. So I don't have that much power there. But it's a conversation worth having. I'm sure many people are used to, let's say, adjustments that happen a lot faster. And it actually came out that there was, I think it was F2 has potentially been trying to game the difficulty adjustment on Ethereum for quite some time. And luckily, being that ours is much more conservative, that attack vector is possible.
All right. So we got us a couple of good questions here. Well, first, actually, I see that Mr. Grayskull has noticed my dude tattoo by his quoting of the Big Lebowski right here. So I must say, Grayskull, the dude abides, and I take comfort in knowing that. All right. So we have a question from, well, none other than Mr. Egger. I used to be able to say his name, but it's Egger. That's it, right? Egger. Okay. All right. I hope I got it right. All right. So what are your thoughts on FIMOs in the bear market? Miners will be hyper-focused on short-term profits and might not be interested in a long-term vision of helping a token launch like this.
My personal opinion is that you have to look at the entire spectrum of mining, right? And one thing that does happen in a bear market more than in a bull market is speculative mining, right? There's more of an incentive for miners to potentially spec mine because the profitability and reliability of the majority of networks just isn't there. So, in some ways, I would actually think with the right education, awareness, and ultimately project, right? I think it's going to break down a lot to the project and kind of the marketing side of it and educating miners about the potential. And I actually think it would be more profitable in a bear market because profitability broadly isn't there, right? If you had something like what we experienced in late 2020, 2021, where suddenly ETH mining was super profitable, and you had people at some point pulling like $5-10 in per card if they had the right setup. I would say in that environment it'd be much harder to launch a FIMO versus when everyone's kind of in pain and looking around for how they can optimize their returns or stay cash flow positive. I think at that point, spec mining actually might make more sense.
Yeah, I also really agree with what you're saying about speculative mining because, some are focused on short-term profits. I think those are actually the guys with the big mining as a business type of setup. Those guys are basically just going to go towards the most profitable at the moment. Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think that the network effect of smaller mining operations and miners, or got a signal there are a couple of miners to mine Ergo. I think those guys are more likely to mine Ergo because of because of the speculative nature of it, because they see the potential and they see that right now, it's
moving into the merge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right now is a good time if you're basically investing into the future. So I think there's going to be a network effect that might balance that out. Again, I just have to wait and see.
I would definitely say that, when markets are in poor condition, it does tend to lead to more of the value investment mentality, where people start to think long-term where they can enter and how they can grow in the future, versus when things get hot and speculative, usually people just chase the trend. So I think FIMO actually could do quite well, but you would need the right, basically education and awareness amplifier out there to let miners know. And I'm sure that if mining profitability approaches the point where people are not cash flow positive, the anxiety of that is going to lead them to start looking, right? And in terms of what they can do. And so, if the right project is there to plug in and it has, a nice use case, it's built the right way, it's open source, and there's kind of a certain traction behind it that allows the average miner to be aware of it, I would say that there's probably no better time than in a bear market.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move to this next question. Good question. Is there any talk of increasing transaction fees to keep mining profitable and help absorb the influx of hash rate due to the merge? Again, Joe, this is all you.
The beauty of how Ergo is structured is the miners do not need to ask. They simply have the ability to vote. Now, if mining profitability does become painful, which is very possible post-merge, and miners collectively want to make an adjustment, unfortunately, in kind of our Senate model of governance that we have now, miners do need to interact with the pools and get the pools to update the header on their nodes and talk to each other. But if there needs to be adjustment there, I would love to see it come from the grassroots, have it come from the miners themselves, to work its way up into the pools, and ultimately get pools to support your choice by voting with your hash rate, right? That's kind of the Ergo governance model versus asking me, a member of the foundation, and then I go out and say, okay, this is what's going to happen. And that's what led to the merge anyway. And I would like to see a different system where miners have power from the bottom up.
All right, here's another good question actually about the merge. So if the merge doesn't go through, can the core devs take away the merge difficulty bomb?
They have in the past. Let's be honest. I mean, the difficulty bomb has been turned off and kicked, the can's been kicked down the road many times. This is why, I say, if it happens, it does look like, based on test nets and, kind of their rollout plan, it does look like it's in the barrel and will be fired at some point. But there's always that potential that something happens and they say, hey guys, let's slow down, readjust, go through some other process. So I imagine there's some mechanism for that can to be kicked. I don't think they'd be totally without exit plan, but if the merge doesn't go through, yeah, it'll be drama. If it does go through, it'll be drama. So we're in for an interesting month.
Yeah, and so here's actually another question that I think we've been getting quite a bit. I think we actually got something similar in the last AMA, but let's try to kind of address it again, because I think there's still a lot of there needs to be more clarity spread out the community. So Ergo has a mixer on the base layer. How, in the light of the tornado crash issue, could Ergo be affected if it draws attention? So basically, the Ergo mixer, if we get more exposure, if we get more traffic, how does tornado cache affect Ergo mixer? Is there any kind of, risk there? What do you think, Joe?
I think that it's reactionary. It doesn't take into account that zero knowledge proofs and privacy rollups are becoming more popular, more adopted, and plugged into more ecosystems, right? And the reality is most ecosystems that have functionality are actually developing privacy-based tools. Okay, so once that technology is in the wild, that is extremely hard to stop, especially in an open system. Now, I would draw a parallel to OFAC said, this is bad for, X reason, something to do with North Korea. yada, yada, yada. You could ask the same question: is any type of token that could be listed or deemed as a security a liability? Because, that's certainly been a fear out there that has created the same type of, hysteria. And I guess potentially privacy could be an issue. Potentially, securities, some classification could be an issue in certain jurisdictions. But the reality is, I got a message after this saying, you guys need to take the Ergo mixer offline. And I was like, well, number one, I can't. And that's the beauty of like the decentralized system, is I literally can't. It's an anonymous dev. I don't know who built it, right? It's open source code. So even if the GitHub is removed, you have a ton of people globally that are running it locally and could use file sharing, P2P methods, any other type of hosting service to share it around. So it kind of becomes one of those things that it's like a weed that you can, remove. Bay has a website and, go through an 18-month investigation and finally shut down that one server. And then suddenly there's 17 mirrors. Good luck. I can't stop it. I have no desire to. I think that privacy has its place. It has a purpose, and, even is quite useful beyond simply like the negative, connotations that come with hiding something, right? It's good to have financial privacy. Sometimes when you're interacting with applications, sometimes when you're bidding on something, sometimes when you're sending, somebody funds, you don't want them to know what you have, right? That's really common sense. So I think that there's a lot of hoopla, hype, and fear around that. And, to be honest, it was quite serious. They arrested a developer. They, pulled things from GitHub. But ultimately, I hope that it sparks a fire in our industry that we say, okay, well, how do we create a dApp that's front end and back end are hosted in ways that cannot be, stifled? And ultimately, it makes our industry harder, better. And, we stop seeing everything hosted on like Amazon Web Services and start actually trying to engineer systems from the bottom up that you just can't remove, Be cool.
Yeah, and also just to add to what you were saying with, I guess they're like, panic trends, especially with new technology, especially with privacy tooling to come around. It's like, oh, privacy coins. We're not going to touch the JFSA. And I still actually think they might still be, OCD about not touching privacy coins. Oh, it's a privacy coin. Oh no, that's just too risky. Well, first of all, it shows you, okay, so exactly why do you want to deny that level of privacy? Because the government is not really going to tell you usually why they're, what is the reason for their action? Why is it not okay? They'll throw stuff at you. Oh, North Korea. Oh, terrorists. Like, okay, yeah, but you can't outlaw everything in the world that can be used by North Korea or terrorists. That's a bullshit reason. I'm sorry. It has to be. You have to be more specific. Has North Korea tried using this? Have they used it successfully? It has to be more like that for the intelligent person, or at least somebody with my level of intelligence, which is, average, to accept it. And what you also have to remember is, okay, so yeah, there could be bad actors. There have been bad actors with privacy, that they use privacy tooling for bad stuff. But it's kind of like, I got to think about it this way, right? A lot more privacy tooling has been used for not bad stuff than bad stuff. So proportionately, the bulk amount of privacy tooling out there has not been used for nefarious activities. And you just really have to think about it that way. And you really have to weigh these things out, and really hope governments out there will start. I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath, but will start come to their senses and understand it's like, okay, you can't play mommy forever because it's not sustainable, because you can't police the internet. You definitely can't police a decentralized ecosystem because, as Joe just said, it's like a weed. You're not going to win. You'll lose. If they want you to lose, you will lose. You can't control it. And it also reminds me of something that was said in a Twitter space that I was in yesterday. It had to do more about NFTs and intellectual property rights, and more about working in Hollywood and utilizing intellectual property in Hollywood and so on and so forth, or in show business in general. And so one of the people actually said that a lot of artists, a lot of starting independent artists are afraid to expose their art to the world because they're afraid they're going to get ripped off. And you can throw out arguments that, you can't really copy art. You can only try to imitate it. If it's really art, it's unique. So if somebody knows that you made it, even if somebody else makes something close, they'll still know that you made the original. It's still not going to be the same thing. And okay, yes, maybe scripts, things like that have gotten stolen, might have been, and there have been actually stories about, scripts getting stolen, rewritten by larger studios and whatever. But look, bottom line here is that for the most part, most scripts and most art does not get stolen. It just does not. Most of it, people avoid plagiarism. People avoid nefarious activities. They use the system, the space for good. Same thing with privacy tooling. Privacy tooling is not made to carry out terrorist activities. It's not made to carry out criminal activities. It's made to give the individual their basic rights, right to privacy. I mean, that is one of the basic rights of living in a free democratic society.
There's also something about, let's say the historical trend of, I hate to say it, but criminal enterprises tend to be the first to pick up innovation because it benefits them. Who were the first people to, afford V8 cars? People in Prohibition that wanted to outrun the cops. Who were the people that, started to adopt cell phones? It was, international cartels and that type of organization, especially when it was quite expensive. Who was the first people to pick up the internet and start, building, that global communication systems, and markets generally. That, I mean, there is a kind of a historical precedent of using the cutting edge to some advantage in that side of the space. So, I think there's always going to be that trend if it is a useful technology that applies benefits to some degree. That can be like a leading indicator of its use. I hate to say it, but it's just true.
Yeah. Of course, I can look at it that way as well, and that's a valid point. Just generally speaking, as I said before, I just think that it's an overreaction, as you said as well. It's an overreaction. You can't look. It's just like with the internet when it just came around, right? I mean, everybody thought that. Oh, I remember there was a show about like UFOs and stuff. I forgot what it was called back in the 90s. And they would show these, it was about, UFOs and unexplained phenomenon and just like weird shit. And so one episode was about a guy who believes that the apocalypse was coming and the machines were going to take over. And he actually had some formula that was written up because the internet was basically just coming up around there. It was like 98, 99. It was just starting to get out mainstream. And so this guy would literally go out and he would smash computers. Like he would buy out computers, and he's like, I need to smash as many as possible. I need to smash, I have to stop the robots from. I need to stop the computers from taking over. And he wasn't. I mean, maybe he was kind of nutty, but he was still like sane enough to form an argument around it, even though it was a flawed argument. It wasn't like, oh, they're talking to me. The evil robots are talking to me. They must be stopped. It wasn't like that. They actually formed an argument around it. And so, and then there was other, legislation out there. They were trying to they were trying to legislate the internet. They're trying to get people to do this, do that. They regulate how things are done on the internet. And to a very, very small extent, they were successful, but to the large extent that they weren't. And I think with privacy tooling, it's going to be the same thing.
People need to remember that in my lifetime and in Dan's lifetime, at one point, cryptography was treated as like a munition, and the transmission of it was, heavily illegal. And what happened? Look at where we are today. Censoring code, censoring technology is a fool's game, my opinion. Ultimately, it's too much of a weed.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's take another nice question here. We got a few. Let's see. Okay. Well, so this is actually a depth question. So again, Joe, you might have to take the lead on this one. I think Ergo needs a good development environment like Remix to Ethereum, which is really developer friendly. The time Ergo is too long to debug. What are your thoughts on that, Joe?
It depends. I believe right now the testnet is firing off blocks at, in the second intervals. So in terms of testing there, we've actually been asked a couple of times, can we slow it down in terms of the testnet environment? But yeah, I ultimately think that having that type of tooling for development itself is going to be beneficial. So I can't disagree there. I think that, one thing that Ethereum has done really well, but it didn't start there, right? And you have to also remember Ethereum's a lot older, so put it into some perspective. But there's a lot of tooling in place that has given front-end developers a tremendous amount of power building on Ethereum, where they can build kind of functionality from the front end, which is quite fascinating. And I would love to see some tooling advance in that direction. But ultimately, I do think that where we are in our growth, there's still a ton to explore and discover in terms of just simple extended UTXO contracts. And once that becomes more common, more understood, more adopted, then yeah, we build more towards the front end, so front end developers can come in and pull from that knowledge base. So it's a growth process, right? I can't say that we are there yet to where you can create as friendly of an environment as Ethereum, but we have to take it into a historical perspective with age, to where initially, Ethereum did take, kind of a high level developer to understand Solidity at first. And then you had a ton of open source frameworks, you had a ton of tooling, and over time, that has really created a path that I respect a lot, and I would love to see the Ergo ecosystem follow.
All right, I think we have time for one last question. This is actually a good one. And so let's get this one answered. This may sound trivial, but how did it work out that there would be 97,739,925 coins? They're not tokens, they're coins, but why not 100 million, 50 billion? I love the project, just genuinely curious as to what thinking determines the token amount. So again, Joe, this was actually answered by you.
This is actually a question that I do not know the direct answer to, but I can tell you the type of thinking that determined that amount, right? And I know Alex well enough to know that he's very functional in terms of his thinking, and I would imagine it came down to the mathematical decay of our emission. That would be my guess, that it wasn't like a oh, let's pick a number, and then we're going to somehow plug that into an emission framework. It probably started from the math and then ended at a number. That's just how Alex is going to think.
No. Yeah. It's definitely a functional number. Again, I've known Alex for a long time as well.
Yeah, that's what he's going to think.
Yeah,
it definitely came from like the emission formula itself, not like, so Dan, how many Ergo tokens? And then whether we think and we're like, I don't know, maybe 10. Now let's go 50 billion. How about 100 billion? And then we try to build backwards from whatever random number we pick. That's not how Alex thinks at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I can tell you that because I'm actually building out tokenomics right now for Palmyra, actually. And you kind of, it's like, all right. Well, I mean, the average, the layman like me will say, like, all right, so that's a good number. Let's see, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. That's a good number. Okay, so let's work down from there, And usually, a lot of times, that's how tokenomics happen. You just kind of have this general idea of basically tokenomics. The high level of creating tokenomics is you write two columns, right? One column is what you want your token or coin to do, and the other one what you don't want it to do. And then from there you figure out your tokenomics, right? And so you can then get more and more detailed and everything, but generally just what do you want it to do, what you don't want it to do. And so generally at first you're going to have an arbitrary amount. You say, okay, well, for my particular ecosystem, I would need more tokens, I would need less tokens or coins, whatever, larger amount, smaller amount, whatever. You just kind of think about it better on the high level, and then you break it down. For Alex, it starts at the base layer,
Guaranteed.
Because he knows all these moving parts already in his mind. It's like, okay, there's 50,000 different moving parts. Let me combine them all together and build a pyramid from the bottom up.
Yeah, it's the Ergo way. It's like back end heavy. A lot of people are going to they're going to start at the front end that you sell to the average people and make that something clean, and then try to figure out the back end after that. And a lot of functional programmers just do not function that way. That's not how they're trained to think. So it started with math, led to an emission schedule, and then at the end, the output is a number that some people are like, well, that's strange. How come that's not clean? And it's like, well, because that wasn't the original intent.
Yep. Exactly. All right, guys. Well, I think that is all the time we have for today or for this week. Again, thanks a lot for joining us. And all right, well, everybody have a pleasant rest of the day or rest of the week, and we will see you next week.
Yep, man. I hope everybody enjoyed this little scrolly deal that Andy built on the bottom. Pretty nice. Makes us look like some kind of news organization. Good job, Andy.
Yeah, good job, Andy. Andy's there in a dark room with a baby probably right now, trying to, it's like, come on, guys. I have to feed the bee in 3.7 minutes. I know how that is. I was there only a year and a half ago. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Have a good one.